is a really, really interesting question. I have been working with VR and AR projects most of my career, um, because VR and AR have been around that long. And with Super World, probably over, I don't know, 3 years now, maybe. And before that, I was on the board of directors of Vortex Immersion. And these guys had these big vortex domes around the world where you can actually enjoy a show, almost like a theater type performance inside this three-dimensional space, and it can be both digital and in person, physical. So I've been in the metaverse most of my career. And the question that should an artist consider getting into metaverse, obvious that answer is yes. But the bottom line is, what is it that you want to do with your art in the metaverse? And how does this add, so how does this benefit the metaverse? How does your artistic project actually kind of move this whole adoption of the metaverse forward? And I think that's a very challenging question, because even though we have some great examples of metaverses, due to crypto markets, it's still very challenging to assess what are some of the, sort of killer apps in the metaverse. And maybe you guys have some suggestions as to what you see as a killer app in the metaverse.
Yeah, I always love talking about this. So even Magic Leap themselves in their earlier presentations, and these are presentations given out to developers, so technically external facing information, broke it down into 6 different use cases per se that they were focused on. I won't probably be able to remember all 6, but I'll remember the ones that were at the top of my mind. So they just would group together telepresence. So typically, metaverse is in reference to VR environments that are extremely interactive and open. Obviously, there's more to that definition, but the idea is that you could establish a co-presence in that space, in that this was, a Zoom call on steroids per se. That's where the value, the unique selling proposition would come from. So that's one category. I'll just keep going. The other 2, I think, were data visualization. I actually thought that was really interesting because you're working in 3 dimensions. You have that z-axis that you're lacking in the screen that we're holding and in the laptops that we type on. That z-axis can actually lend itself to entirely new data types, right, or entirely new data schemas that aren't doable. At least if you do it on a 2D screen, then you need to shift perspective to be able to see that extra dimension of information. Usually, I think that's like a time dimension. So they'll plot something that's like, or maybe not time. I forget what the other dimension is, but they'll plot quantity on x-axis per se, and then y-axis might be time, and then it's like countries is like the z-axis or something. So data visualization, and then another category, because I'm going to forget the last 3, but another category would have been they had like a digital human, and like, so the whole concept, they actually had their own project called Project Mica, and this was an augmented reality digital human, but nonetheless an AI being, or some sort of being that has like a neural net to it, would be a use case for I don't want to say it, but like um, I mean, there's different use cases, but one area they had been exploring is either Alzheimer's, when somebody who feels compelled to have a companion at that age is like needing of one who's still responsive. So it's a dynamic use case, right? But also just digital humans in general to help solve what bots already accomplish on like Facebook Messenger. I think that's very interesting because right now you can send these like pre-scripted answers to like questions, and then the bot like immediately sends back or has these like fake typing indicators. This would be more immersive of a response, and perhaps companionship is made out of that. So okay, I don't want to rant too much.
I think that's awesome. And all of those use cases are amazing, and definitely something that, one can consider solving in the metaverse as sort of a killer app for the next generation of companies. Um, what I also love about this whole idea that you have a digital world and physical world is that you can offer products and services in both worlds to the audiences globally and more instantaneously, and in somewhat sometimes even in a better sort of experience, and that's what I feel is an opportunity in the metaverse that we haven't met yet, but we're on our way there.
I think you're right. I think also there's a lot of different types of perks that people can get, especially from um, maybe performing or providing like valuable products in the metaverse that they can't get in real life, but they have to actually get a ticket, um, either a key or some sort of NFT in order to get access to a special song or a brand new performance of a song that hasn't been released. And they get that access, and they maybe the actual recording of that performance can then also when it's saved and recorded, that can also become an NFT, and then they can actually uh, um, auction the actual performance as a product as well. So there's so many different things that can be done in the metaverse, that it kind of brings brings the actual you can actually turn the performance, the different things that is on the screen, or different uh, collectibles that are on the screen that are branded to those artists, and actually mint them as NFTs and provide them, and actually have physical versions of them as well.
Yeah, I think also what's fascinating and what's been recently taking up most of my extra mental energy or bandwidth is okay. So there's two things here. There's the AR fashion, which I think is fascinating. It's like this, to me, the way I'm viewing it, beyond just the simple low hanging fruit digital clothes on humans. I actually think of it more as like interpersonal relationships where something like having a verified photo on a 2D screen for like dating profiles. That helps bring comfort, that helps bring trust in that dynamic of that relationship, right? I think that's going to start, could be wrong about this prediction, but I think that AR clothing, it's going to be almost obscure or weird, right? In like 5 years, if like you don't have a digital layer to your being when you're outside. And I could be wrong about that, but I do think it's very interesting that that would be like a key determiner, determiner of whether you're uh, technologically savvy or maybe even like technologically with it. It could be indicators or signaling outside of that. So when it comes to metaverse, though, I do think it's really interesting. I think Facebook kind of touched upon this very briefly, that we curate 2D spaces and 2D feeds already on a platform such as Instagram. But now when we have the Z axis, now we're going to be curating storefronts that are store shops, right, that you walk into. And I think that everyone's going to have their own interpretation of what that decor looks like, as well as obviously what items are offered for like digital e-commerce. But yeah, I think that's the whole thing. It's going to be like, now you're, as they say on Twitter, or sorry, on Instagram, your feed will be like your room aesthetic. Like, what's that? Yeah. What's that going to look like for each person? I'm sure they're trying to capture that side of the market.
And that's been around for quite some time, in terms of starting with Second Life, which was, I don't even know now, 20 years ago maybe, where people actually created their own environments inside the Second Life, and they would sort of create houses and rooms and spaces, and then have a whole Second Life inside the application that already existed for quite some time, but it didn't take off in such a way as we're seeing some of these environments taking off during the pandemic. But also, I think the speeding up has happened because of the tokenization and this proliferation of NFTs in the world, because now you can monetize, reward, and incentivize people to do these things. What are some of the NFT applications that you guys are seeing lately that you think are just sort of next generation, really interesting, and where the market may be going?
Yeah, I think that so maybe an undervalued and also under executed strategy is actually having the NFT be the access pass, because at that point you can actually NFT access pass or token gate even profile picture collection. So almost it's like a membership token. I'm not seeing like very much in the way of that. Maybe that'll grow over time. But what's interesting as well is you can the initial pass appreciates in value, as well as you have the option to do a subscription. All of this stuff, I think, is stuff you can actually just tamper with or have be written into the smart contract. There's something more that I keep seeing online, maybe even NFTs that because now people are with hype. I want to say it right. HAPE Beast. This new drop that's coming out. I think that what's slowly kind of making its way into the mainstream is having the NFT itself have like wearables, which I guess would be like a sub NFT. So with the Hape Beast drop, it's going to be like adaptive clothing or interactive or dynamic clothing that I haven't really seen before. So that gets me excited.
What does the adaptive clothing look like?
Yeah. Well, the Hape Beast drop itself, let me make sure that it's not out yet. It shouldn't be. But it just means Hape Beast. And if it is, then I'm sure they can do a better job demonstrating. But from my understanding, I guess it's not coming up. My understanding is that now the attributes that were ascribed to to a Bored Ape, um, they're calling them gold teeth. They'll call them like propeller hat or like blue cap or something. Those aren't splintered from the image. Those are just qualities that I guess get minted into the NFT, written into the metadata. But now I think the hat itself is a different NFT, and that this is now swappable. Now this is it basically creates its own internal market for that specific NFT collection. That's what my interpretation is, but I could be wrong, and especially if Michael or sorry Frank, if you have something, I don't know, anyone can correct.
You know, I think you're right. I mean, I think with the space anyway at the moment, many different brands, what they're doing is now they're trying to buy up as much land as they possibly can in any of these platforms like Sandbox or and these other platforms. And what they are now trying to do is set up so that they can also sell their augmented reality products like trainers, t-shirts, in the metaverse. So I'm seeing a lot of these big brands are now really making connections with sports uh, um, clothing companies and big luxury labels and developing actual clothing lines and augmented reality clothing lines that are going to be able to be worn in the metaverse, some of which even cost more than the actual physical trainers and the actual physical clothing. So it's a huge shift that is it seems like is going to happen, and I can see it every day. There's a new acquisition, there's something else happening, and big brands are getting involved.
Yeah, definitely. And VGF might know better than I do, but for the Hate Beasts drop, I did pull up their website. It does just say right off the bat, unique, fully 3D and built to unite the ape multiverse. I assume that maybe they're doing a 3D generative drop, although that sounds incredibly difficult. I think that would be through Blender or elsewhere, because that would not be done in a game engine. Game engines are typically just, for lack of a better word, a sandbox to throw digital assets in, and then you can coordinate with game logic, the physics and particle systems and colliders. But one thing that's really interesting is that Firefox uses Gecko, and then Safari is using like WebKit, and these are like necessary stepping stones or like frameworks to get digital assets to run what's called like WebXR environments, right, online, so that if you want to do metaverse without having an Oculus strapped to your face or without going through the intermediary of Facebook, of Oculus Store, then this is how you would do it. You would actually have to climb up this specific ladder so that you're just booting into a browser or loading a web page. And then I'm also going to add here that there's Chromium. Chromium, I believe, is the open sourced version of Chrome. And people are basically forking this to try to get digital wallets to run on on Oculus Quest 2. Right now, Facebook basically has that pretty sectioned off, and you can't get digital wallets to work. But if you fork the browser and they already have Oculus browser, then there's not much Facebook can do to prevent that from happening.
Fascinating. Hi, Eric. You want to introduce yourself?
Sorry to be late. I'm Eric Calder. I'm of crypto space and founder of New Ocean. I'm also the US licensee of Currency. I advise projects on token economics matters and generally serve as connective tissue in the space.
Awesome. And we were just talking about the metaverse and, reason to be in the metaverse or not to be. And then some of the newest projects in the NFT space that are sort of capturing everyone's attention. Let's look at it just a little bit, maybe from the business model side. We talked about, sort of the creativity and the driving forces, use cases and creativity behind it that's driving the adoption and the development of these companies. But let's kind of break down the business models that are happening. So I go back to this Adidas drop. We talked about it yesterday in our clubhouse in the morning, but it's mind boggling how they combine some of the really, really smart business models with the drop. So they they had 30,000 collection, 30,000 pieces collection, and it's called Into the Metaverse NFTs. So they took all the key phrases of things that are being developed and included it in the name. They were minted within a matter of hours of going on sale Friday. Each NFT was 0.2 ETH, which on that Friday was $765 based on the price of ETH at the time. And the company sold 29,620 NFTs, and the Adidas and partners held on to 380 for future events, quote unquote. So even those 380 earned the company, so meaning that the company earned more than 22 million from the sales in the span of an afternoon. And the partnership they cut for, to launch these or to mint these 30,000 NFTs was with Board Ape Yacht Club, Punk's Comics, and G Money. So these are well-known PFP drops that have done really well, probably the best in the space. And they were literally utilizing their brands to do their drop, partnering and adding the power of the Adidas brand to it. And so the interesting thing about it is what you guys are saying earlier, which is that buying an NFT gives the owner the access to special physical goods like a hoodie or a tracksuit that was worn by the Bored Ape that Adidas owns. But basically, they're not going to get that merchandise, that physical merchandise, well until the 2022. So people are paying $765, as Frank was saying earlier, mostly for kind of metaverse items, these NFTs built for the metaverse and not really for the physical goods that are underlying that purchase. So that's an expensive pre-order for almost anything. Do you guys feel that some of these NFT drops that you're seeing in the clubhouse, are they using this business model? Are they partnering with other successful drops? Is that something that's happening, or is this just something available to Adidas because of the strength of their brand?
Well, I to begin with find it astounding that that they're raking in those kinds of numbers, and more especially that it's those kinds of companies, because it speaks to a shift in the internal culture of large corporations, right? Where they they've had 10 years to think about crypto, and crypto's been dirty and crypto's complicated and all this kind of stuff, but at the end of the day they're on board now. Right now it's just a question of how do we play with business models, and can those be used to generate revenue, and the answer is clearly yes. Right. And I don't frankly know, like when you buy an NFT from Adidas, I'm not close enough to the subject to know whether you actually get a pair of shoes or what exactly you get. But whatever it is, it's enticing enough that they have found a market, and I find that pretty remarkable. I think it heralds, it speaks of much bigger efforts coming in the future from competitors, and even from the same companies that can look at a project that has been very successful, which I think we can call this very successful, and say, hey, let's.
Well, Eric, I think the most important thing is that you do get a t-shirt or a tracksuit or, one of those workout suits from Adidas, but you don't get it until 2022. And, I don't think anything in Adidas, especially in the US, costs more than $40-50. And the drop was like 765, an NFT. So that's what's
Yeah,
fascinating
so
about it.
this isn't just a pre-sale, right? This is what the topic that I've been talking about, that there's intrinsic and extrinsic value to these NFTs, and these premiums indicate that there really is quite a lot of intrinsic value, right? And I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. I think it's somewhat of a collectibles mentality. It's somewhat investment speculation, but I think it's more than that, because now you're talking about something rather quite commercial in nature. So it's certainly an interesting direction. I'm very excited to see.
You see, there's many also. What I've been seeing as well in the past few days is many different uh, companies that are now starting to offer NFT backed loans. I've actually seen two today that have said they're going to start offering NFT backed loans. And that is massive because obviously people who own Punks or Board Your Ape Club NFTs are going to be able to put them up as collateral to borrow either stable coins or Bitcoin or Ethereum, which it just it I think it just speaks to how everything is going. It's moving in that direction where the value is actually being recognized in those NFTs, and in whichever NFT is going to be the next big thing, um, it's going to be an easy move to use those NFTs as collateral and borrow against them.
I think you've put your finger on something really important too, Frank. If I go to my bank and I want to borrow money, and I've actually done this, I've gone and asked them, look, I've got some gold coins, I will give them to you. Can I pledge that as collateral? No, 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 no. You can't use gold. Really? Okay. How about a car? Nope. Okay. How about this? How about I got cash, physical cash? Nope. They will accept like real estate for a loan, right? There's very, very limited assets that they can use, and there's lots and lots of conditions around it. And so now you flip over to the crypto world, where basically anything that has a somewhat established value can be used as collateral. And NFT, right? What's the market look like? How do we establish valuation for it? Well, never mind. It sold for this much last time. It's worth that much. It's good as collateral, right? And so all of a sudden, that if you are able to expand the collateral base, it means that the credit markets are in for, like, we're actually generating, right? When you look at the rest of the world, the central banks, they're all in the negative yields area, which is absolutely insane. And so I think this is um, to get much, much.
Yeah, it's interesting. We lost you at the end, Eric, but I think you were saying this will just get much, much bigger. And what Frank was pointing out, it's growing really fast in every direction. We were talking about this Solve protocol in the newsletter and yesterday in the clubhouse that raised over $4 million from really top tier investors, both venture capitals in the blockchain space and foundations in the blockchain space. And they're creating this set of vouchers using NFTs, and these vouchers will allow, basically for the creation of structured financial products on chain. So things like bonds, convertible notes, usable vesting tokens, so they will really allow not just to stake against that entire board ape that you own, but like fractional components of it, vesting in different ways, converting to other assets. I mean, this is just an endless supply of new, in essence, financial like instruments just on chain.
It is crazy that you could have an actual NFT that is valued at $2.3 million, and then you can actually borrow against it and buy real estate, which is crazy to think that that is what possibly the youngsters of today, when they get older, they're not going to know anything other than that. They're just going to know that this is what it is, and you're able to actually obtain these type of assets, which are collectibles online, and buy property.
And just the whole idea of value that you pointed out, Frank, which is, um, having been at variety of crypto conferences over the last, decade, everyone always starts their discussion about crypto assets by saying, well, fiat money is not really backed by valuable things, right? Anymore. It used to be, and this is what's happened there. But when you think about what's happening now, um, one can argue that some of the tokens are definitely backed by value because you have these protocols that are throwing off value and building economies and all that. But now you created these assets, these digital assets, some of them connected to physical assets, others not so much. Like this Adidas one, has some connection to a physical asset, to like a t-shirt, but the value of it is so much greater already. But as a valuable product, holding that NFT could actually increase further in value depending on what happens to that whole business. So there's a whole host of new assets being created that are not necessarily tied to some sort of an economic value generation. So that's
Mariana,
what's, yeah.
um, I see one of my favorite people in the audience. Maybe you could invite Bish up to the board, because he would have some very interesting thoughts about this as well. He's right in the thick of it all.
Hi,
Hello, Bish.
guys. How you doing?
Good. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Bish. I'm closing my door so nobody else can hear me in the house. And I'm in Scotland, and I'm working with Eric and various others on the Vow project, which I listened to what Frank was saying there. It was very interesting. But this idea of what is value and where does it come from and how can you capitalize on it and how can you abstract it and create various forms of derivatives from it. We're trying to do something similar. And I guess that's why you pointed me out, put me in the firing line, Eric. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible. The problem I have with it all is like, what's real? So when you think of an asset that you're going to abstract into a loan, um, you know, this idea that providence is enough to allow you to borrow against something is strange. It's strange to me. I still haven't quite grasped whether something is backed by something or not.
So here's a
What do you
thought,
think?
Bish. If you have 21 million Bitcoin and you have an audience that is of a certain size, let's just say, I don't know, there's 10 million people that are buying Bitcoin or whatever, right? Then you can come up to a total valuation for Bitcoin of, let's say, $1 trillion, because that's what we have today. Well, now you look at an NFT and you say, okay, but there aren't 21 million of these things. There's exactly one. So then the question is, how big is the size of the market, right? I mean, there's a valuation mechanism in the last trade price, right? That sets a kind of an absolute sense for what the thing is worth, because somebody was willing to pay that. But the bigger question really is how many other people would be willing to pay more, especially as the wealth within the ecosystem grows, right? And so my guess is that paying whatever it is that we're paying for these NFTs today is probably not high enough, right? We're probably going to continue to see capital appreciation on these tokens, even though there's an incredible proliferation of them.
But how can you
And
say
there,
that? I mean, that doesn't seem to. I mean, if my daughter can go and make a little NFT of a sandwich, um, you know, why should that have value just because someone paid some ETH for it? It could have done a round robin and no value is actually exchanged, but there's a blockchain record of some value. So how does that sandwich now have value? It's not the same principle as, you know, it is about how many people are demanding that sandwich. But is there really a market for that sandwich that she created?
well, that's really the question, right? Is if someone actually paid some ether for it, there is a market, and it may be a very small
Hey,
market,
Bish, you
right?
have to mute after you speak. Thanks.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we hear the background noise.
right. So there may be nothing is, I mean, of all the NFTs that are being issued, not all of them have a market, but those that do. And then what happens is that there seems to be an amplification process here where, by the very fact that at least one individual is willing to pay some value for it, everybody else is paying attention, and they say, oh, okay, so this is more real, and their own willingness to become involved increases until there's a second transaction, and now you have a feedback loop, right? And so this is in some ways completely unrelated to the type of value production that Vow focuses on, which is more traditional. That is to say, we used to think about value in terms of, can I wear a pair of shoes, right? That's valuable. But now we don't really care about shoes. People go barefoot. People don't own homes. They rent instead. They don't own cars. They Uber, right? So the whole perspective on value is changing, and I think there may be sustainability in all of this NFT stuff. That's what I'm starting to suspect.
Wow, you're a believer. CJ, you want to introduce yourself and ask your question?
Hi there. I was gonna say it wasn't a question. Just y'all were talking about the Adidas drop. I work with Pixel Vault and oversaw some of the marketing for that project. So
So
I thought it
tell
was
us
interesting.
about it. Tell us
Uh,
about. I love that project. What do you think made it so successful?
Well, the exposure of Adidas helped, but it was an interesting drop where it kind of brought together, four intellectual properties from Pixel Vault, Bored Apes, Adidas, and G Money, all in their own rights, successful and notable IPs, but having them come together, weaving that narrative through Punk's comic #2, and then having it culminate in the Adidas merch drop was something I think unique to the space, that we haven't seen a collaboration on that scale yet. With multiple of these organizations and projects coming to collaborate together on a single project. Um, and I thought it was interesting because I've heard a lot of this speculation around, the value and the price, and that, at face value you're spending almost $800 on what appears to be a tracksuit, and some merchandise. And I think it's naive to think that that is the only applicable use case to that NFT, and that it wouldn't be as sincere an entrance into Web3 for Adidas if that were its only case.
Well, what I love about it is that the 30,000 person drop happened with help of Bored Apes and Pixel Vault and G Money. How did you guys market to your own networks, and like who was in charge of that? Because it's a bit of a, you know, distributed community. And who in that community then picks up the pace and goes, okay, I'm going to cross brand with Adidas and get people involved in this.
Well, so I'm credited in the comic as marketing, but I definitely don't take all of the credit for making that happen. Ben Mayer-White from Adidas is actually who approached us back in May, actually, about having a crossover. Um, Contrary to popular belief, there are a good nugget of people within Adidas that have been, native to NFTs and Web3 and crypto. So it kind of was incubated from within. That they had this kind of core group of people from within Adidas that were interested in pursuing Web3 initiatives, and then credit to the Adidas executive team for being open-minded and willing to hear this out. That there's a right way and a wrong way to approach this space, and even though I'm sure they could have done their own PFP or their own merch project and sold it out successfully. Coming into the space, buying their own Bored Ape, branding it, bringing it into Punk's comic issue 2, weaving that narrative around all of the characters, and then presenting it as this collaborative effort across all of these communities was a more authentic way of presenting it. To the benefit of all of those communities, not just Adidas. And to me, that sort of collaborative energy was more native to Web3 and the space, in that the collaboration one probably wouldn't have occurred in Web2, and most definitely wouldn't have shared in the proceeds the way that they were in this project. So to collaborate with such a massive and established and reputable entity like Adidas was certainly out of the norm, but definitely a learning experience kind of all the way around.
And it's fascinating. So you're credited as a marketing, in charge of marketing in the comic uh, drop. And do you actually get paid for that? Do you get paid with NFTs? How is that? Is it a structure? There's a DAO? What's the format of that collaboration? That's what's fascinating.
Well, so yeah, I'm a contractor with Pixel Vault, so I am a full time paid contractor. Um, for sake of, like, the company, most of us involved with the company are contractors at this point until there's further legal establishment or guidance from Fenwick, who are our legal representation on how to move that forward. But um, yes, I've been compensated in both NFTs and in crypto, and I had the option of opting into being paid, either in USD or crypto, and I chose the latter. Um, but yeah, Pixel Vault is definitely kind of interesting in more ways than one. The ability to choose my model of compensation was definitely one of them. But I've been involved in the project since pre-launch. I was actually the first community manager and built out the Discord for them, which, as of the Adidas drop, we peaked at 82,000 unique users. Um, so that was definitely a learning experience there too, because it showed that even the tooling and kind of infrastructure that we're reliant on to do a lot of these things just aren't ready for mainstream adoption yet. Because we single-handedly crashed Discord for multiple minutes. All of the bots went down. Mainline voice comms getting knocked out. Like, just the bandwidth for drops of this scale aren't there yet. Like when OpenSea goes down as a result, Etherscan going on the fritz. There's just a heavy load for drops that like have this much juice behind it. So it was a really interesting stress test.
So who drives the growth of the Discord channel in this sort of an environment? Was it Adidas? Was it Bored Apes? Was it Pixel Vault? Who did it?
I mean, so it was definitely collaborative. It was an early conversation as to whether or not Adidas wanted to take it in house and have their own Discord server. Ultimately, they chose not to do that and to rely on our expertise with an established Discord environment, secure setup, and then having a full moderation team to help oversee and do Q&A for the drop. So it was definitely collaborative in the sense that we already had the established Discord that we helped oversee some of the tech and development for the project, and then having all of those funnels pointing to our Discord to help run it. I mean, the juice most certainly came in large part from Adidas. Their 4 million following on Twitter definitely was a pretty massive spike in engagement, but it did go out, kind of all the way around.
And so you have 80,000 in a person Discord, which is unbelievable and amazing. Good job. And 30,000 of those just got minted. So how what happened to the other 50,000 people in the Discord channel? They didn't want an NFT, or they didn't want to pay for it, or how did that happen?
Well, so 20,000 of the 30,000 available supply were via whitelists. So there was a pre-sale list contributing of the Bored Apes, the Mutant Apes, all Pixel Vault token holders, as well as POAP holders from G Money and Adidas themselves, which were about 10,000 of those 30,000. And so there was a pre-sale list, about 30,000 individuals vying for 20,000 NFTs. And then once it went to to the public sale, there was an additional 10,000. Basically, the public sale was a set aside 10,000 supply plus whatever didn't sell during pre-sale. We weren't entirely sure that it would sell out, but apparently the demand was much higher than we originally projected. And so it sold out in pre-sale within a matter of I think it was 10 minutes, and then the public sale in a matter of, I think it was 3 minutes. So it was definitely a pretty hyped drop, and then the secondary volume has been ridiculous. I think we're up north of 20,000 unique holders out of that 30,000 supply now, which to have that within 48 hours of the drop was very encouraging to see. So yeah, I mean, it's been a heck of a journey. Definitely some stumbles. The mint had to be paused at one point to make sure that the pre-sale list was accurate. But once that was buttoned up and reopened, the public mint went off without a hitch. And then to have 20,000, I think it's up to 20,200 out of the 30,000 as unique holders. We were very encouraged by that.
What's next for this type of a project? I mean, maybe not even this one, but some of the other projects that you're seeing. Once you have this engaged audience that holds a valuable asset, that they think of not as just a t-shirt or a tracksuit or something else that they're going to get from Adidas, but really as a membership card into some better experiences. What are some of the things that you have thought through and are seeing that are coming down the pipe?
Ooh, that's a heck of a loaded question. I very much enjoy my position, and I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm going to be elusive on that one. But as I maybe had alluded to, it's most definitely not just a merchandise drop, and that I think it's naive to think that in collaboration with people like Pixel Vault, Bored Apes, G Money, that there aren't other plans for these NFTs beyond just being redeemable for that merch. So there's most definitely other uses and plans for the NFTs when it goes through these phases of redemption and then culminates in this final ERC 721 collectible. Yeah, I don't want to go too much further than that, but yes, there are plans beyond just being a collectible or just being redeemable for merch.
Yeah, we can almost, that's a great answer, but we almost have seen that a lot of the other NFT drops are going in that direction. You know, it's really more of an exclusivity of an experience that you're buying into versus the physical or digital goods in the drop, right? And those are going to be the successful projects as they go forward, like this one. What are some of the other things that you guys are seeing, CJ and everyone else, in terms of uh, some of the successful clubs that are being formed with the NFT drops that are actually providing interesting experiences that you feel like, oh, I should have, purchased that particular NFT because I would have really enjoyed doing that?
It's a good question. I'm actually trying to think that through myself. I mean, obviously, front of mind is Bored Apes. I actually really liked. So they had the Decentral Miami. That's the full name conference earlier this month. On the 1st of December, I rewatched the video with Krista Kim, and I'd suggest this to anyone. Krista Kim and Veritas. Veritas is from Metaverse. He actually says, Veritas, in that recording, in the talk, that he attended a Bored Apes. It was the New York yacht party, and there was like a 12-year-old Tamil kid, and he really loved that because he basically found a community within a community. This kid had gone completely on his own to this Bored Ape Yacht Club party, and Veritas was like, "Dude, get under my wing." So that's a fun.
I mean, I think Bored Apes is the easy, kind of low-hanging fruit answer there, where they've expanded beyond just being a PFP project to IRL events, the incorporation of merchandise, this sort of social club aspect to it. And a lot of people have kind of made the tangent or parallel to, Bored Apes being the next Supreme or the next, whatever hype beast kind of streetwear culture. And while I think they can do that, I'm more interested in seeing them become more of a Web3 Soho house or something along those lines, which I think that they do have in the works with. This is all speculation. I'm not sharing insider information or anything here, but I do believe they've teased the IRL Yacht Club in Miami. And so I think, along those lines, Bored Apes and other IPs can expand well beyond just being, party throwers or, these IRL installations. Um, Danny Cole's Creatures is another one that stands out. His OpenSea event during NFT NYC was absolutely incredible. You mentioned Metaverse, their party and their installation with the IRL screens and stuff like that in New York was phenomenal. And so I think that there's going to be a lot more of this. Not just what the NFT is or what the picture or video attached to it stands for, but the practical application and utility of what that token allows me to do. And it's kind of one of those things, like I laugh, but to the right click savers, it's easy to go and right click the image, but go try and get into the yacht party with that, or go try and get your free redemption or your airdrop or your token claim with that image. It's not the image, it's the token. And I think that the projects that really drill down and emphasize those aspects of it, that it's not just the token or the imagery attached to the token, but what it enables you to do, are going to be disproportionately successful.
And we're seeing, being in digital media and entertainment my whole career, we're seeing film, television, music, games projects that are trying to create these hybrid experiences with NFT drops, but, kind of supporting then, global screenings and events and things that involve traditional media as well. And I feel that that's sort of the next step in this process as well. So I am grateful to all of you for coming to join us for the Clubhouse this week, following our virtual Infiom Salon, which is the last one for the year. However, we're continuing the good things next week. We'll have 2 Clubhouse discussions, one Tuesday at 10 a.m. and Wednesday, creating unicorns with NFTs, DeFi DAOs, and metaverses. Frank, we added that just for you. That will be next Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. If you would like to sign up for any of our events or newsletter, everything is free, but just click on our website, which is pinned to this title right on top, and you get all the information that we put together on our YouTube channel. We taped a lot of our discussions over the year in the Clubhouse, and you can sort of play them in the background to immerse yourself in some of these wonderful discussions and experiences that people like CJ and Devin and Eric and Bish and Frank and everyone else shares with us in these discussions. I want to wish everyone Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Here back in the Clubhouse. So thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Yeah,
Woo!
Thank you.
thank you.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. See you next week.